Hello and welcome to episode 2 of season 4 for Ask Miss Jai Live. I am so excited to be coming to you live on today, National Coming Out Day, October 11th. So today we are going to be talking about ways that you can better support trans and non-binary people who come out and what that can look like. And we're going to talk not just about practical strategies of how you can support trans and non-binary folks who come out, but also some more general pieces and ways that we can move with the gender expansive people in our lives to be supportive in our own way and in a way that feels safe for us and safe for the people in our lives. So stick around, learn a few tips, and thank you for being here. Hi, everyone. My name is Miss Jai. I use she, her, and he, him pronouns. I am the host of Ask Miss Jai Live, and I'm realizing that my name isn't up. There it is. And so I am the host of Ask Miss Jai Live. I come to you once a week during our seasonal airings to share some tips and tricks and strategies for supporting trans, non-binary, and intersex people. Today, we're going to be talking specifically about how to support trans and non-binary people who come out to you because it is National Coming Out Day. I am very excited to talk to you all about this today. I think that there will be some hopefully some helpful pieces here for you. If this is your first time checking out the YouTube channel, please like this video, subscribe, share it with a friend that you think would find it helpful, or a trans or non-binary person in your life to show them that you are doing your best to learn new things. And today we're going to be just sort of like diving into it. I'm really excited. It is National Coming Out Day, as I mentioned already. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this and how we can support gender expansive people, transgender and non-binary people who come out to us. So the first thing that I want to say are some caveats, some ways that we can kind of move with anyone who comes out to us so that we are giving ourselves a little bit of grace and also giving ourselves the opportunity to meet people where they are at. I take a harm reduction approach to everything in my life. So I try to meet people where they're at and try to treat people the way that they would like to be treated, not just the way that I like to be treated. So the first caveat that I like to share around this is that there's no such thing as the perfect ally. I was talking to a family member of mine yesterday about the folks that I meet in the work that I do in training and teaching people. And oftentimes folks fall into 3 different buckets when they're willing to learn, but there's a lot of concern. And one of those is this fear of perfection, this fear of making a mistake, this fear of, I don't really know how to do this, so I'm just not going to do anything. And so when we are trying to show support to other folks who are different than us, folks who are similar to us or might have shared identities, but also come out to us, it's important for us to keep in mind that there's no such thing as a perfect ally, and that we're not being asked to be perfect when someone is coming out to us. So we can't fear making mistakes, because mistakes are part of how we grow and how we learn. And because the reality is you will make mistakes. I have been out for quite some time. I have had folks in my life who I've known since childhood who have come out as trans and who I've been able to support and care for and care about in my life. And I still sometimes make mistakes. I still might sometimes use the wrong name, or I might accidentally misgender someone. And so we can't fear making those mistakes, because then it will keep us stuck. However, it is important that how we respond when we make a mistake is appropriate and is also compassionate and provides dignity to the person that we're trying to support. So when we do make a mistake, it's important that we follow the amends acronym, which I've talked about before on this channel. So it's acknowledging the mistake, meaning that we don't just pretend like it didn't just happen, that we make an apology if that's necessary, right? So I'm sorry, those aren't the pronouns that you use. That we edit or we rephrase. So I might then say, she is looking for the restroom, etc. So I would edit what I've just said. And then if I keep going back and forth, especially with the folks that I'm closest to, if someone is generally coming out to you, there's some sort of relationship that already exists there, likely. And so I might negotiate and be like, hey, I keep messing up your pronouns. Do you want to keep hanging out? Should we take a break? Like, what does this look like for us? So we sometimes need to negotiate consent around spending time together. D is driving forward. We have, like, if our friend's like, no, just like stop calling me by that name, right? Then we have to move the conversation forward. We have to move the friendship forward. And then S is making a plan for ourselves to sustain it. So we've made amends. We've figured out a plan to sustain how we can make sure that we are not making these mistakes in the future, or that we are limiting these mistakes in the future. The second category that folks fall into, as I was talking to my family member, is a fear, is not really understanding. So maybe it's not fear, but not really understanding trans or non-binary identities. And as a result, saying like, I don't understand that, so it's not for me. I don't understand that, so I don't need to care about it, etc. And what I would like to say around that is that you don't have to understand someone's identity to respect it and treat them with dignity and compassion. I don't need to understand someone's fully lived experience in order to treat them with respect and dignity and compassion and care for them as a friend, as a family member, as a colleague, as a coworker, etc. So we don't need to understand someone's identity fully in order to respect that identity. And I see there are some folks that are watching the video today. Welcome to Ask Ms. Jai Live. If you have questions or comments that come up, please feel free to use the comments below. Please feel free to also subscribe. I come every week to share new tips and tricks and strategies for supporting gender expansive people in your lives. So we don't have to understand someone's identity to respect it and to show them compassion and care. Similarly, because we don't necessarily fully understand, it can be appropriate for us sometimes to ask questions to gain a better understanding, but we don't want to become interrogative. And the way that I sort of separate that out is that I might ask someone comes out to me, let's say they say that they're non-binary. Then I might ask them, oh, what does being non-binary mean to you? Or how does that feel for you? Or what does that mean for how you would like me, like the language you'd like me to use when referring to you, like pronouns or name. So those are all appropriate questions for us to ask, for us to be curious about, to get a more understanding of what this identity means for the individual. When I say interrogative, I mean, we want to avoid questions that are treating someone's identity as if it is an illness, a disorder, a maladaption. So asking questions like, do you think you're non-binary because you experience violence? Do you think you're non-binary because you were confused about your sexuality when you were younger? Do you think you're non-binary because X, Y, and Z? And so the really big difference between this is asking questions to better understand what this identity means to the person and how we can support them, versus asking questions that question whether or not the identity is valid and real. And now we've been talking about identity for a bit. And so there's a third caveat that I like us to think about when we are trying to provide support to folks who hold a trans or non-binary identity. And that's that there is more to a person than just one identity. So coming out can be a very stressful process, even for folks who have a lot of support. It can still be a very stressful process because there's a lot of what ifs. What if this person doesn't react well? What if this person questions my identity in these ways that feels interrogative? What if I think that my family member is going to be very supportive and then they're actually not very supportive, right? So there's lots of what ifs that can come up when we are coming out to someone. And I think what's important for us to keep in mind when someone does come out to us is, one, that they're likely holding a lot of that stress. So how we respond can be a way to help alleviate some of that stress, but also that if we are only hyper-focusing on their transness every time we get together with them, then we start to stereotype them around being like this one thing. We dissolve them down to just a two-dimensional version of themselves. And so what can end up happening is we can actually move from being an ally to being less supportive when we are only hyper-focusing on transness. I think it's important for us to keep in mind that our gender identity, just like many other identities that we hold, right? So someone might be a parent, someone might be a student, someone might be Black, someone might be Latine, be Indigenous, might have cultural connections. All of these identities are important components of an individual and help to inform how the individual navigates the world, how the individual connects with other people. But these are all just one aspect of identity, one portion of a person, not representative of the whole. And so there's more to a person than just one identity. And if we're just focusing on that one identity every time we talk to the person, every time we want to talk about transness because we are really super excited about it, or we're really gung-ho about being an ally, then that can also start to feel tokenizing. And so we want to allow folks the opportunity to be more than just one identity. On the flip side of that, if we ignore that identity completely and say things like, oh, well, you've just always been my sibling, so like your transness doesn't matter to me, then we're also invalidating and erasing the importance that identity holds for the individual and how that identity informs the ways that we navigate and move through the world and are perceived in the world, and the challenges and benefits that come from different identities as well. So there's more to a person than just one identity, which means we want to avoid hyper-focusing on one identity or ignoring one identity completely, especially when folks are coming out to us. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining live today. I'm seeing there's lots of folks on the stream today. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to add those in the chat. Also, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. My name is Miss Jai. I host Ask Miss Jai every week during our show season, and I bring to you tips and tricks and ways that folks can support gender expansive people in their lives. So now I've talked about some of the framing, some of these not theoretical, but like some of the ways that our mindset might look when we are supporting someone who comes out to us. But I also want to talk about the things that you can do, because generally that's where we get to is like, what can I actually do right now in the moment when someone comes out to me? And so the first thing that I'm going to say is that when someone comes out to us as trans or non-binary, the first thing that we can do is we can respect the name and the pronouns that they use, and respect those name and pronouns even when that person isn't around. Meaning that if I, for example, am working with someone who has come out to me as trans, maybe they had started working with me and were already going by this name and this pronouns, but they just happened to come out as trans and disclose to me the name that they used to go by. Then respecting name and pronouns means that I'm using the name and pronouns they currently use, even if I know the person's previous name, even if I know that there are other natal pronouns that the person might have gone by, or like a legal gender marker, that I'm still respecting the name and pronouns that the person has told me that they want to use and that they feel most validated and affirmed in using. And the reason I say even when the person is not around is because, one, that helps model to other folks how to respect name and pronouns. Two, practice makes permanent. The more frequently that we are using the person's name and pronouns, the more likely we are to continue to use those name and pronouns, and the less likely we are to accidentally misgender or use the wrong name with them. So respecting those name and pronouns can be super helpful. But I had also mentioned knowing a person's previous name. And so sometimes what I see happen is someone will find out about a person's previous name, or they will know the person prior to gender affirming transition or going by a new name. And so they will refer to this person. So they might say, oh, Sarah now goes by the name Max, right? So the current name is Max. However, they're still referring to this person by the previous name. Or they might say, oh, Max, well, their name used to be Sarah, and I remember them as Sarah, but their name is Max now. So this is a way that we unintentionally invalidate someone's identity and disclose to other folks that they are trans and what their previous name was, which sets other folks up to potentially use the wrong name with the person. So we don't want to even go there. We want to not refer to the person by their previous name, and we don't want to disclose that they are trans to other folks without their consent. Unfortunately, for trans and non-binary folks, sometimes disclosure of our identity can be very unsafe when our identity is disclosed in a way that is non-consensual for us. And so we don't want to disclose to other folks that someone is trans without their express consent. And we especially want to make sure that we are not disclosing to folks who have a casual acquaintance with our trans and non-binary friend or family member or coworker, because that also means that the person that we are disclosing to might unintentionally dissolve this person down to a two-dimensional version of themselves as well. Hello, hi, sweetness. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for affirming the recommendations I have. Happy National Coming Out Day as well. And there's a question that came in the chat. So not necessarily a pronoun misuse, but where do we stand on words like dude, bro, or man? I personally use these words with everyone regardless of gender because it's just part of my vernacular. Yeah, that's a great question. And this comes up also with like honorifics, right? Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, miss, etc. Oftentimes, language like this in our vernacular is unintentionally very gendered, or the way that it is received can be very gendered as well. So I have, for myself, I've shifted more to general gender neutral aspects. So saying things like y'all, friends, peers, colleagues, etc. Just until I know how folks identify. Because the other thing is we're not trying to, as trans and non-binary people and folks who are gender expansive, there are folks who are non-binary and do not identify with the like man, woman binary, but there are also lots of trans and non-binary folks who do identify as part of the binary as well, and so may feel very affirmed with language like dude, bro, and man, or sir, Mr., miss, right? And so my recommendation, especially since this is part of your vernacular, is to practice a couple that are a little bit more neutral, at least until you know how folks identify, and start practicing asking folks how they identify as well, or just saying like, what pronouns do you use? Generally, the way that I do this is I introduce myself. I say, my name is Miss Jai. I use she, her, and he, him pronouns. How do you pronounce your name, and what pronouns do you use? Because I've also had lots of folks in my life who maybe pronounce their name a little bit different than how I would say it, and I want to make sure that I'm putting respect on their name as well. And so when I ask that, if someone tells me, oh, like I use he, him pronouns, then dude, bro, and man, which are often received as gendered, I know can be used during that. And I know my internet is getting a little wonky, so I hope the rest of that answer got through to you. But if you have any additional questions, feel free to put them in the chat as well. I also saw there's a chat, and I can't find a gender neutral honorific that you've tried. The one that I've seen is mix, MX, as opposed to Mr., Miss. I also sometimes, like, I've also worked in healthcare and in public health, and in healthcare specifically, there's a real push for like showing respect to an individual. And so the way that I have shifted from just using an honorific to show respect is showing respect through my behavior and my action and the way that I treat people. And so I think that that's also a way that we can move away from gender to honorifics as a way to show respect to someone and show respect overall. These are great questions. And thank you, Sweetness, for the compliment on my necklace. I love chunky jewelry. Gender neutral alternatives for sir or ma'am. What I have done in the past is I've referred to someone based off of their relationship to me. So for example, I might say, for example, like a colleague, I might say, yes, thank you, colleague. In the instance of like patient and provider, because that was my role with a lot of folks, or like client and provider, then I would just refer to them by their name generally. So I'd say, thank you, Max, or like, thank you for checking in, Max, or thank you for providing that information, Max. So referring to the person's name as opposed to an honorific like sir or ma'am. I feel like that also sometimes makes it a little bit more personal, but it also depends, I think, in part what the expectation is for around professionalism in the field that you're in as well. Just start greeting people with nerd or gamer. Yeah, thank you for that, Lunas. So I want to share a couple of additional things that we can do as well. So I've already shared we want to respect name and pronouns even when the person isn't around, that we don't want to refer to the person by their previous name or disclose that they are trans to other folks without their consent. We also want to ask folks how they would like to be supported. So what I have found, because for myself and what I found for other folks in my life, is that even when I share an identity with someone, even when someone comes out to me as trans or non-binary, there is sometimes this knee-jerk reaction of like, okay, I'm going to do all the things, I'm going to do all the things right, and I'm just going to jump in. And that might not be what the person is needing in the moment. And so when I ask someone, how would you like to be supported? How would you like support in coming out? Would you like me to share with other folks? Would you like me to not share with other folks? It kind of gets to those previous points as well. Like, who is it safe for me to use your pronouns around? Who is it safe for me to use this name around as well? Asking how someone would like to be supported gives me more information so that I'm able to be a better ally, right? A better accomplice to the trans or non-binary person that I'm providing support to. And it also helps me avoid assumption about who I can share your name in front of or your pronouns in front of, or what you're looking for in a support person. And what I mean by that is like, so for example, if I have someone come out to me and they haven't told their family yet, then if I'm in a situation with their family, then I might not refer to them by name. I might refer to them by like, oh, I got to go grab my friend, or oh, I'm going to go like see my sibling, or those sorts of things, as opposed to referring to them by name or by pronouns, because I know that they are not out. And I don't want to forcibly out them, because that can be a very stressful and intense moment for folks as well. So we want to ask folks how they would like to be supported. And then finally, let's take time to learn more as well for ourselves. So it's not fair for us to rely on any one individual who holds an identity to be the sole educator on that identity, on that community, on that culture, right? So I wouldn't lean on my one Black friend to teach me about Black culture. I would learn more on my own and allow my friend to inform additionally kind of how they navigate the world, what like culturally they experience their foods and their community and holidays, etc. Similarly, I wouldn't rely on the one trans or non-binary person in my life to teach me everything about transness or being non-binary. What I would do is I would say, I would be inquisitive, as I shared before, without being interrogative. And I would listen to podcasts or read books or watch clips on YouTube or watch documentaries or movies that involve trans characters or non-binary characters, so I could get a more robust understanding of the community and not just make stereotypes about the community as well. So this is a way that we can do our due diligence and take our time, as well as not put the sole burden of educating everyone on the person that we care about and that we're trying to show support to as well. So it's sort of this like both and approach. So I hope that this has been helpful. Thank you so much for the comments in the chat. If you are catching this on the replay, go ahead and put a hashtag replay in the chat. Please share your comments, your thoughts, and questions as well. My name is Miss Jai. I run Ask Miss Jai Live. I'm here every Friday during our season, and our season just kicked off. So for the next couple months, I'm going to be here every Friday providing some additional tips and tricks and strategies for supporting trans, non-binary, and intersex people in your life and in your work. This has been focused on trans and non-binary identities, so I'm really excited to bring additional information to you all. And if you liked it, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and feel free to share this video with other folks that you think could benefit from it. And as always, well, first, happy National Coming Out Day. And as always, thank you for taking the time to invest in the health and well-being of trans, non-binary, and intersex communities. Until next time, stay safe and take care of yourselves.